Hello and welcome to the Clock and Talk, an Arsenal podcast, and we're covering, for fuck's sake.
Good job me and Schwinn are a lot more prepared than you, because if we came on and went, oh yeah, we didn't watch the game either, we was on the piss, it'd be a pretty shit podcast.
Well, Mesut Ozil is the best number 10 in the Premier League.
Yeah, that all looks good on paper, but there's never been a football match played on paper, so it's not really worth much.
I'm going to make a bold prediction that Jack Wilshere will sign for West Ham United.
It's time to start watching football with your eyes. I think people listen to what the commentator's saying and have that as their own opinion, but if you watch what's going on, you'll see things a lot clearer.
Schwinn, who do you think is going to win the Golden Boot?
I think Alexis Sanchez might do a number on that this year.
Okay. Tony talks about a clock being right twice a day. Tez is right every day. Try it from 5, lads. Fucking beauty. Hello, we're back. Welcome to the Clock End Talk. You can follow us on Twitter at @clockend_talk. We're also on Facebook, all good podcast apps, and YouTube. It feels like it's been a bloody decade since we've recorded, but anyway, we're here for a special show in the international break to do our ratings. Tony and Schwinn, you boys are with me, so I'll introduce them. Tony, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Severely bored with our football, but at least on Friday we saw that it's coming home again. So, and then tonight again it's going to come home, as it always does.
You've been having a little wank over the internationals. I've never even watched any.
The only game I've watched, to be honest, I watched obviously football coming home, and then I last night watched Holland Germany, which was not bad actually. They're the only 2 games I've watched.
Actually, somebody told me the other day, and I didn't see it. They unloaded on Scotland, and apparently Scotland got beaten by some country that won. Who was it?
Borats, 11 Borats, Kazakhstan.
What a classic.
They lost, and then they beat San Marino or someone yesterday, but Kazakhstan beat Scotland 3-0 and then lost 4-0 to Russia.
The old multi-killer.
I've not seen it.
Yeah, no, I just seen it because they were whinging about it, killed their multis. So anyway, Schwinn, how are you, buddy?
Doing very well. Not too bummed about the international break. I'm on holiday. Not watched any football.
So who have India played?
I have no idea. I don't even know if they've played, to be honest. I've not watched any football. It's not on the football field, I'll tell you that.
Gold digger.
Hey, so what, have you been tuning into a bit of cricket, mate, or what have you been doing for the last week and a bit?
No cricket, no football, no sports. I mean, I watched the Grand Prix last week.
Don't talk about it. Don't talk about that. I don't know about it.
Best not to. I mean, you guys have spoken about horse racing on here. I'm sure the listeners wouldn't care if I spoke about the Grand Prix, but still, I'll avoid that. But that was the last bit of sports really I watched, which was almost more than a week ago at this point. It was before the last podcast we did, so it's been a while, but that's okay. I'm happy to wait and take one day at a time, enjoying the holiday period.
Bloke, he's on holidays all the time. No, the only reason I didn't give a fuck what the listeners think about what we talk about, but I was more thinking Daniel Ricciardo. I don't want to know what happened. Well, I do. I already know what happened. I don't want to talk about what happened. Fucking stupid move. Okay, so we come back. We're going to do some ratings on what we think these players or the Arsenal players have performed. It's just going to be type of off the cuff, Tony, because we haven't really got any. It's just our thoughts on how we think they've been playing for the season, how they think they've been going and whatnot. So there's no. Like a who scored bloody technical fucking thing going on here. So just basically,
I'll be honest, I forgot we were doing it until about 10 minutes ago. So my ratings are going to be whatever I think of off the top of my head.
Mine the same because I haven't done no prep at all. So Schwinn's probably done his homework.
Probably not.
I mean, the thing is with Schwinn, he's been on other podcasts that don't answer user questions, so he basically thinks what everyone else thinks is apparently irrelevant, so he might as well do his own thing.
That was pretty piss poor, wasn't it? I asked the question about XG and fucking nothing.
put three
We
questions
just
in.
never got to it. There was so much more to talk about. And Darren and I tend to disagree more often than agree on things. So, we just started talking about some stuff, and lo and behold, we look at the clock and there's 45 minutes gone.
Basically, in future, if you're going to ask us any questions, we all appreciate them apart from Schwinn. So just direct them elsewhere, because he thinks you're beneath him and won't answer them anyway.
I wonder if he actually knew the answer, though, for the XG questions.
So I think he's bottled it.
Okay, let's get into this. So we'll start the goalkeepers. Check, Tony.
To put, I don't know. We're going to have. I'll just start this before we start. Me and you have very different views of what's average, and we've had this discussion before. So I'm going to give Cech a 7. I think he was actually playing really well, got injured, and then has lost his place. But I don't think he was ever doing anything wrong. And I remember everyone at the time saying sort of the same things. His kicking isn't. He's not comfortable with the ball at his feet, and that's the reason he lost his place. But he wasn't playing bad. Even in the 3-1 loss at Rennes, he was our best player by a mile. So for me, 7 is sort of average. It's what I expect that of you. Like, you've done well, but not brilliant. For me, that's a 7. So I'm going to give Cech a 7.
Okay, and what you're talking about there is, so I type of think a 5 up. 5 is an average. Anything below 5 is a down. 6, 7, and 8 are, you're getting above average. But do we want to start as a 6 as an average, do we, and work our way from there?
Yeah, I think it'd be best for us to have us all working off the same scale. Otherwise, I can say 7, you can say 5, but it means the same thing, and it looks a bit stupid.
Yep. Okay, so we'll start as a bit like Football Manager. We'll start everyone as a 6, and then we'll go up and down from there. Okay, Schwinn, Cech.
Yeah, I'm in accordance with Tony there. I think I've also been a fan of Cech, and if you would rewind and think back to the beginning of the season, or maybe even beginning of the summer, I was okay with him sticking around for another year and being our number 1. Of course, that hasn't been the case, but I think he brings a lot to the table, especially in the dressing room, and he's obviously one of the veterans of the club. That also has some value to it. So I'll give him a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go around you guys, around the 7. I can't think of any major issues when he was there. Well, when he was starting. Nothing really stood out. Oh, shit, he's made a mistake. I remember last year there was the odd error that led to everybody saying we need to sign a goalkeeper. So I haven't seen that this year, so I'm going to say 7. Tony Leno.
For me, he's exceeded expectation. I'm not as big on Leno as everyone else is. I still don't think he can kick a football. I think he kicks it poorly with confidence. At least he's confident. That's a positive sign. He's been much better shot stopper than I ever would have imagined. I thought he'd have problems commanding his area from crosses and stuff, but we've not seen that at all. We're still the only side that haven't conceded from a corner. So I'd give him an 8. There's definitely still room for improvement, but he's also definitely done a lot better than I expected.
Okay, Schwinn?
Yeah, I'd go with an 8 as well. Just half a notch above Cech. I think he's surprised us in certain moments. And he's also made some big saves, point-saving saves, if you will. And that has obviously been, a surprise for me. So I'd go with an 8 as well.
I got one higher than you boys. I'm going to say a 9. And I'm giving that. I think he's been absolutely brilliant this year. And when I compare what we actually paid for Leno, as opposed to what Chelsea paid for their goalkeeper, and on a scale like that, I think brilliant value for money, and he's been brilliant this season, so he gets a 9 from me. Bellerin, Tony?
Look, this is a time-old comment from me. I'm not Hector's biggest fan. I also appreciate we're a much, much better side with Hector in it, even though I don't think he's the greatest player. Probably a 7, and I don't know if that's more on. As I said, I don't think he's been brilliant on the pitch, but when he's not there, we're noticeably worse. So I'm giving him his rating more as a cog in the machine rather than what he's done individually. But just because of the way he plays, I don't think I'll ever, just because of his style, I don't think I'm ever going to be someone that's ever going to see Hector as a 9 or a 10, to be honest. It's not unbiased against him, but there's so many limitations in his game.
Okay. Schwinn?
I'd go for an 8. I think we've missed him, and that speaks a lot. Football's a sport where everyone has to sort of come together, just like what Tony spoke. You have cogs working together in the machine, and sometimes you realize the worth of someone when they're not available. And again, look, if Tony's not a big fan of Hector, I've gone on board and gone further and said some even more nastier things about him. But I think in time we'll realize that he provides a pathway or an outlet that none of the other players in our squad are able to. So for that reason, I'll give him an 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'll go 7. He hasn't been. Actually, he was playing really well, wasn't he? In that attack, he started getting that ball moving in well. It's the defence that lets him down for me. That's the only reason. So I'll knock a few points there. I'm in between a 7 and an 8, so whether a 7.5. Socrates, Tony.
Better than expected, definitely. A lot better than expected. I think he's our best defender. Very, very few mistakes off the top of my head. I'll go an 8, just because I think he's been not a constant. I know he's not played every game, but he's played the most of our centre-backs, I'd imagine, without looking. And he's very rarely let us down. And there's definitely games when we've gone, like he's been man of the match, or we've said, that game would have been completely different without him. So I'll go 8.
Schwinn?
8.5 for me. I think he's been one of the better signings in terms of value for money. Also in terms of, what we expected from him. I think there was a lot of doubts about what he was like in his last season in the Bundesliga. And if you think back to the friendly we played against Bournemouth in pre-season, he got burnt by some winger who's playing very low-level football. And we were all wondering whether it's the right signing. But I think he's one of those players who's come in and stamped his authority. He's brought a bit of the dark arts that we missed. We expected Lichtsteiner to be another person to do that. Of course, we'll come to him. But I think he's been a very important cog in the wheel. And I've been pleasantly surprised. So 8.5.
This is an interesting one for me, because I agree he's obviously our best centre-back. But if I'm comparing to a Van Dijk and I'm thinking a 9 or a 10, then am I giving him an 8.5? So I've got to come down one to about a 7.5, because he's not, for me, he's obviously a long way from one of the best centre-backs in the league. But he's one of the best for Arsenal. So it's one of them ones that is so bloody hard. I have to go 7.5 again for him.
And I know this is going to change in a minute when we get to midfielders, but how comes you're being logical? This has never been seen from you before.
It's been the week off, mate.
This is all going to go out in the window in a minute when we go Xhaka and you try and give him an 18 out of 10. But yeah, it's weird.
Kashani. Tony.
Look, I said when he first come back that I didn't really want to see him play for us anymore, and that was based on he wasn't brilliant last season, and everyone was saying it was his Achilles. And then he came back after his Achilles was fixed. And he did come back too soon, but I didn't really recognise that. I just saw him at the same level he previously was and thought, that's it, that's just his level now. But week on week, he's improved, and he's pretty much started every game since he's been back. Would I give Socrates an 8? So I'd have to go 7.5 with Koscielny, just because he did have that horrific first, 3 weeks or whatever it was. And yeah, he wasn't ready to play, but I still have to judge him on that performance because he did play.
Mm-hmm. It's come back to haunt you, them words, hasn't it?
Yeah, I very rarely say anything like that. I was thinking of this the other day, actually. But as I said, I just saw a continuation of what was shit last year.
Yeah.
And I saw a continuation. So I thought, it's not his Achilles. He's just gone.
Mm.
But then, as I said, it's maybe the club's fault for bringing him back too early.
Yeah. I was just trying to think. I don't think there was an option, though, was it? They had to bring him back, didn't they?
I think they bring him back against Southampton when Socrates and Mustafi were both suspended. I think we ended up that game, we played Koscielny, Xhaka and Monreal was a back three.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Schwinn?
I'm going to go with the exact same rating and exact same logic, so I'm just going to abstain from repeating what Tony said.
Yeah, I've got to come one down from his. If I give Socrates a 7.5, I've got to come down to 6.5. As he has, he's been good in games. Look, a little bit like you said, Tony, probably come back a bit soon, but is he outstanding for me? No, but is he? Yeah, 6.5 I'll have to run with. Lichtsteiner, Tony.
I don't feel like we need to rate his performances on the pitch. He's not done anything. Look, he's definitely, what do we say, a 6 is sort of average. You've turned up. He's definitely below that. I struggle to point out a good game. But then I also think sometimes as a fan base, we're overly hard. When he does nothing, we're like giving him a 2. I don't think there's been any huge errors off the top of my head, but then he's also not done anything good. So I'm going to go just below average, somewhere between, 4 or 5, 4.5, because I'm just torn between 4 and 5. So put it in the middle.
Okay, Schwinn?
I wasn't expecting a 4.5 from Tony. I thought I was going to go lower than him, but the figure I had in mind was 5, and it's because I expected a bit more from him. Credits to Tez here, because he has been criticizing the signing from the beginning, and I thought he would be someone who can come in and do a job for Hector when you want to rest Hector or rotate him for whatever reason. And that has not been the case. I think more often than not, we've looked at Ainsley Maitland-Niles to come in there. And at that point, you have to question whether bringing in Lichtsteiner for, even on a free was worth it. And for me, not at all. I don't think he was required at the club, and his best years are past him for sure. I think when it comes to a good game, the one against Southampton, just about, a month ago, I'd say, was decent. But, whatever wages he's on for that, just having one good game, I don't think is worthwhile. So I'll go with the 5.
Yeah, I watched this bloke at Juve. He sat on the fucking bench playing with his dick. Did fuck all when he come on the pitch. He come to Arsenal for free, and the Arsenal fans were up in arms, you fucking little ripper. And I stuck to me digs and said, boys, this isn't good, sign him. What are we in March? I don't know how many games he's played, but every fucking time he's played, I don't think we've ever said a good thing about him. He hasn't been in our top 3 or 4 for man of the match. Yeah, so I think it's probably one of the worst Arsenal signings, would I say, in the last 5 years. Maybe 10, I'd have to think my head back, but it's been a shocking performances from him. He gets a 2 from me. And that's, I would go a 1, but I'm sure there's somebody worse than him who we've signed in the last decade. But yeah, a 2. I've got no time for the bloke. I read an article there yesterday that he may leave at the end of the season because he wants to play first team football and regular football and whatnot. Fucking crying out loud. Give me the bus. I'll drive him there to wherever he's got to go. I'm happy to take him. Get rid of him. Rob Holding, Tony.
Just to check, sorry, I'm not sure if it's my internet or yours, but that was very patchy from you. So I don't know what Schwinn heard. Holding, I thought he was very good before he got injured, and he was the, I don't want to say rock because we didn't depend on him, but he was the one you knew was going to be on the team sheet every week. Where we played a back 2 or a back 3, you knew Holding was going to be there, and he done it well. I'm going to go 7.5, the same as Koscielny, because they've kind of had the opposite seasons. So Holding came in and started the season and done very well, and then has not been there since. Koscielny barring the first 3 games, has come in and done very well since then. So I think it kind of coincided. I think Holding got injured, and then a week and a half later, Koscielny came back. So I think Holding is more important to the way we play. But again, I don't think he had many performances where we gone, Holding was amazing, he should be man of the match. So I think a 7.5 is probably fair. Look, I'm going to go, if I say Socrates was our best defender and has been our best defender this season, and I'm giving him 8, so I've got to go with below, but I don't think he's been too far below.
Okay. What about you, Schwinn?
I'd have him tied with Socrates at an 8.5 because, I mean, I've always said that centre-back pairings are more important than judging centre-backs in isolation, and I think both of them, when played together, have shown that there is a spine for the rest of the team to operate off of. And I think that's when I'm the most comfortable. It could be just personal bias and not going off of what's actually happening. But I feel when Socrates and Holding are there, then as a fan, as a spectator, I'm much more comfortable. And I think that might also reverberate or across the team. So for that reason, I'm going to give him an 8.5. Not to mention, we've missed him a lot. Whether it's rotation, whether it's Mustafi being Mustafi week in, week out. And I think that is also a testament to how important he was in the first half of the season.
I give Socrates a 7.5, Koscielny a 6.5. I think Holding, I said, as you said, Tony, Socrates has been our best defender, but geez, Rob Holding, he was on fire before he got injured. I think it was a real shame that he did get injured, and I think if he continued to play on and didn't get the injury, we'd be talking his name as probably one of our best that we've had this season. So it is very unfortunate because we haven't got to see a full good season of Rob Holding this year. So I would say a 7. Socrates obviously gets a couple in front of him because he's probably played a lot more games and the more consistency. But I would have liked to seen Rob Holding. But yes, a 7 I think sort of fits in for me. Just a bit better than Koscielny, a little bit less than Socrates. Monreal, Tony.
Again, it's just standard Nacho, where I don't think he's ever really been bad. Off the top of my head, I can't think of being awful. I don't think there's been many games where he's completely excelled. So I'm just going to have to go 7.5 again. So a lot of 7.5s from me.
You're sitting on the fence, aren't you?
Well, I was giving an answer. I could just say, yes.
Yeah, 6. Schwinn?
He's a tough one for me because, I mean, as Tony said, he's Mr. Consistent, but I think there has been a dip in his level. I think the fact that we've played him in a back 3 more recently as the left center back has helped him. And, of course, that has also brought the best out of Kolasinac. But when used in his traditional position of a left back, I think he's struggled. I think he's not quite in terms of covering ground what he was. And it might be a sign of his age. It might be a sign of not having enough fitness because he has dealt with injuries on and off. Having said that, it's a very, very tough one. I'll have to go with, looking at the other ratings. I've given Koscielny a 7.5, and has he been below Koscielny in that level? Probably not, but I think it's a sign of what is to come. If you understand what I'm saying, because of that, I'll give him a 7.
Isn't it crazy? Last season, I think a couple of us were talking that he was probably. I stand to be corrected though, but was he one of the best for Arsenal last season?
Yep.
By this
second, I think, behind Ramsey.
Yeah, so I probably just had a guess. He probably got 10 goals last year, was it?
Probably not too far. I'd say 6, 7 if I had to guess, but maybe 10.
So I think you said he's had a bit of a dip in form. I think he's had a major dip in form. How 12 months has changed. I don't know what's happened, whether it's something to do with the way Emery's setting things up, or I don't know. It's just bizarre how a player can dip so much in form. For me, he gets around a 6. He's been average. he's done nothing outstanding, but has he done much wrong too? So probably a 6 for me. Yeah. Mustafi, Tony.
As much as I'm not going to say dislike Mustafi. I don't dislike any Arsenal players. As much as I don't really like to see him in our team. Again, I think we always have a hate figure at Arsenal. When anything goes wrong, it's their fault. Even if it's not their fault, it becomes their fault. And I feel Mustafi's that of the defensive type at the moment. He is for me, he's our worst centre back, and that's why he gets the criticism. But it's just that one moment every week. He can have 89 brilliant minutes, but there's going to be one moment where he's going to do something completely retarded, and often that can affect the result of the game. Look at Tottenham. I actually thought he had quite a good game considering he was massively out of position, but then he gives away the penalty in the most ridiculous way possible, and now that game's a draw and we're 2 points worse off. He's definitely below the other two centre backs, but I would probably say he's been average on all. Just because he's been the worst of our defenders, I don't think he's been completely terrible. So I'd go a 6.
Okay, Schwinn.
Again, it's very, very hard to argue with what Tony said. We've come on here week in, week out, and just we've run out of words when it comes to Mustafi's brain farts. What I will say is that I think he's done enough to merit interest. And if reports are true that we are trying to ship him off, I think he will have suitors in the price range that we think is appropriate for him. And I think that is because of the 89 minutes that Tony spoke about there, where he can be good. And maybe there's a manager or coach out there who feels that there are certain things that can be coached out of him. We know that's not true, but some other idiot might believe that to be true. Having said that, I think it's hard to argue with the average rating of a 6, because I think those two things, him being Mustafi and the other managers, maybe thinking that there's something to salvage or balance each other out. So a flat 6 would do it for me.
Yeah, when you talk about a player and brain farts and fuck-ups, it's always a Mustafi. I don't think we've come on this podcast week in, week out, and Mustafi's name hasn't got mentioned for some ridiculous fuck-up. He's a bit below average for me. I'm disappointed with the signing. Disappointed with the money we spent on him back then. He just hasn't proved himself. That he wouldn't be in my top 100 centre backs. So he gets.
That's
he fucking would, mate. He fucking
I agree with that.
So on that basis, he gets I'm leaning between a 4 and a 5. Probably,
you gave Lichtsteiner a 4.5, did you?
What did I give?
No, that was Tony.
No, I'll give Lichtsteiner a 2. Useless cunt.
A 2.
Yeah. So Mustafi's around about a 4.5 for me. Okay. Did we say we're going to do Jenko, Tony? I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jenko, one game? 2 games?
Or Europe as well.
Oh, yeah, Europe, yeah.
Look, for me, I'm going to give him a 6, not because he's just not done anything bad. He's not really done anything right because he's not played too much. So on what we've seen of him, 6.
Yep. Schwinn?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking down my ratings and I've given Mustafi a 6, and I want to give Jenko a bit more. But again, that'd be unfair. And to even give Jenko less would be unfair. I think against Bournemouth, he was rather good, I'd say, when we played them in the Emirates. But he's not had enough game time. I think Bournemouth was his first Premier League game in more than 2 years or something. It was 700 days or somewhere close to that. So it's very, very hard to put a rating on him.
700 games, fucking 700 days, fuck me.
700 days, yeah. So it's been a while, hasn't it? And I mean, even the cup games where he's played, he's been Jenko. You're going to get 100% effort from him because at the end of the day, he's an Arsenal fan. I'll give him a 5.5 just because giving him a 6, the same as Mustafi, would be unfair.
I got nothing more to add on it than you boys have. There was one game he played really good, and everybody's saying that he should have started over, I think it was Lichtsteiner that week, which, fucking hell. I should start over Lichtsteiner, useless cunt.
Well, you've got to remember, you've got to remember that he played against Bournemouth and we had Tottenham next, and there was people genuinely, not fucking about, wanted him to start against Tottenham in the North London derby away. So
that's what I mean. Yeah. So he had a good game. It's very hard to judge it. I just have to say 6. I'd like to give him more, but just hasn't played enough games for me. So it's hard to top a judge on them couple of games he's played. Mafropanos, he hasn't played, has he? One game maybe.
He came on for 10 minutes once.
But I think we'll skip that. Klosenak, Tony.
Again, his limitations annoy me, but he's been a huge part of our team. This is another one I'm going to have to go as a cog in the wheel rather than on the individual ability, because I don't think his lack of defensive ability has really cost us as much as it probably should have. And attacking wise, he's been throughout the season probably our main outlet. I assume he's our top assister without looking. So I'm going to go 8. But he's one of them that number could easily fall in the last 6 weeks if his vulnerabilities are acted on by other teams. But he could also massively rise if he keeps having the freedom he is having. He's very good at what he does. He's just very bad at what he doesn't do. And if teams start making him do what he's not good at, then I think there's a car crash in there somewhere.
Okay. Schwinn?
I'm a bit torn here because, I gave Bellerin an 8, and based on that, one could easily argue, as Tony just did, that the Kolasinac probably, commands a higher rating. It's a tough one because we've seen Emery chop and change a lot this season, as we've spoken about, and a lot of times we've accommodated Kolasinac in different roles. We played him in a back 4, back 5. Even against City, where we went for a 4-4-2, we saw him out there, as the left midfielder almost. So he's obviously very important, and he serves the purpose that Tony just spoke about. But I don't know whether I don't think he's good enough to be at the club. I think he's someone we'll have to make do with at least for another year. And he is proving to be important the way Emery uses him. Having said that, I'd still go half a rating lower than Bellerin because I think there's obvious gaps in his game, and as Tony said, he can be exploited in the next few weeks to come very, very easily.
Okay. Did you get my Lichtsteiner one? Because I did cut out and I just seen that.
Yep,
yeah,
2.
2? Okay, yep. And for those who didn't hear me, I'd said he wouldn't make my top fucking 300. Useless cunt. Who we are, Kloss? I forgot all about him, Fuck. He's been better than Monreal. What did I give Monreal? 6?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd have to say 7. I'm with you guys, and exactly what Tony said. He is really good at what he does. Too. And
before you go on, Tez, just to give you another reference point, you gave Holding a 7 as well. So just to put that in perspective, would you still give him a 7, or would you like to switch to 6.5 or something?
Okay, Holding a 7. I think he's been better than Holding now. Jesus, a fucking tough one. 7.5. I think he has been. Look, he's been instrumental in our attack, but it's the defence that does worry me. If I'm comparing this against the top 10 in the world, well, he doesn't even get a mention, but we're not. So it's the best of what Arsenal's got at the moment. So what he does and what position he's playing, he's best at what he plays. If I give Monreal a 6, Holding a 7, I'll just go just in front of the 7.5. I totally forgot about him, to be honest. El Neni, Tony.
I'm struggling to think of games he's actually played in.
Sorry to interrupt, but can we do Maitland-Niles before we go on to midfield?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, we can. Yep. Maitland-Niles. Yep, we'll go on to Maitland-Niles and Tony.
Been shifted about a bit. He's had some bad games. He's had one or two recently. I mean, this is swayed because his last 2 games have probably been his best 2 games of the season. I'm torn between a 6.5 and a 7. He's definitely been above average a lot of the time, but then he has had a couple of 3s and 4s, and he's had a couple of 8s. I'll go 6.5, 6.5.
Okay, Schwen. It's a bit low, isn't it? 6.5, jeez.
It's tough because, as Tony said, it's not his go-to position, and at least according to him. And I think there have been times when we've been frustrated by him. He turns to switch off, and in his position, you can't really afford to do that. And that's somewhere probably where Hector deserves a shout, because he is perpetual motion in that regard. But it's tough to look over the past couple of games. Against United, he was very good. And even against Rennes, I think the second leg, I think he played, and he was very, very good. I'll have to go with the 7, the same as I gave Nacho, because I think he's been one that surprised me. I've never taken him for a right back. I think he's better at left back than he's at right back, to be honest. But I think he surprised me, so 7.
Well, like I said, they're not hard to get in the fucking team over Lichtsteiner while Bellerin's out. So, what do I give Bellerin? 7?
7.5.
I'll have to give him the same. I think he's been good. He's a great young player, and last couple of games he's been outstanding. So yeah, 7.5 for a player too that isn't meant to be a midfielder, like playing right back and then the left back and then all over the shop. Like, you don't see many players who can adopt to playing them, so many different positions, but not only just doing the job, doing it well. So he gets an extra point just for that alone. So even if I base it around a 6.5, just for being able to adopt to so many positions and do it well, he gets a bonus point there for me. So 7.5, Shwee. El Neni, Tony?
I literally, off the top of my head, can't even remember many games he's played in. By that nature, I can't really remember any mistakes he's made. I also can't remember anything good he's done, again, by the same nature. So I'm just going to go 6 because it's just been completely unmemorable, and I can't rate him down for it because I can't name a mistake. So 6.
Yep. Schwinn?
I think he's been a waste of money, waste of player wages, waste of a squad player essentially, in terms of there could have been someone else who could have taken that spot. And I mean, his future is clear, right? That he's not going to be at the club anymore. I have nothing against him. I just think he's been a placeholder in a lot of regards, and he's been a placeholder that we haven't used. So probably go with the same as I gave Jenko with the 5.5.
Yeah, I don't know, El Nelly, poor bastard. He's one of them players that I just think, fuck, you're never meant to be in the first team, and then when you nearly think you're going to be, they bring in Mkhitaryan, Torreira, and Maitland-Niles starts shining, and Guendouzi, and then all of a sudden you've been pushed back further and further and further, and it's like this. You must be just sitting there thinking, fuck this. Is he a good player? I don't know. He's not a fucking brilliant player, but he doesn't do much wrong either. He just I don't know. He's so hard, El Neni. I don't know. He's one of them players. I'm with Tony. Got to give him a 6. I can't remember anything he's really done wrong. I don't know if he ever did anything right either. So yeah, I can't knock points off him. So just a 6. Fucking hard. Mkhitaryan, Tony.
Well, if we'd have done this 6 weeks ago, my score would have been a whole lot different. I think in the last however long he's been back from injury, is it about 6 weeks? I think he's been our best player, not only total but in pretty much every game as well. Even Ren, he came on and he made a massive difference, and he only played about 12 minutes. I think if it was just that, I would be looking at 8.59s. I really think he's been that good in the last few weeks. But then we do have the early part of the season where he was Mkhitaryan, essentially. Well, the Mkhitaryan we expect and what we've seen in the previous year here. So that balances it out, and I'll probably go a 7. But if the next however many games there are, 10 or 12 games, if he's at the level he has been in the last 5 or 6 for the rest of the season, then the score would go up quite a lot.
Okay, Schwinn?
I'd go a notch higher with an 8. Even during the first half of the season, I think if you look at the underlying numbers and some of the dirty work or the knitting work that he did in terms of combining in plays and just being a part of the creative force that we were at that point, he was very important. He wasn't probably delivering your assists or even your hockey assists, but he was moving the ball from key areas into other key areas, and I think that's sometimes maybe gone unnoticed, or he wasn't doing it often enough. I think where he sort of fell off the map was maybe closer to when he got injured. That's when he started to struggle a bit more, and Tony's right in that regard. He didn't do himself any favor in that in that type. I think an 8 is fair, especially we've seen how important he's been ever since his comeback, and he takes off a lot of the creative load from some of our other players like Mesut Ozil, Aaron Ramsey, Alex Iwobi, who we'll get on to. I think an 8's fair.
I put Mkhitaryan, and I know you, but both of you touched on his poor performances at the start of the season, and look, I'm not going to disagree with you there. But do you put his recent form down to Emery? Because let's face it, when Emery took the job, he was adamant he was going to work with the players and get the best out of the players, and that's what he does. And I've seen it obviously with a couple of these players, and we're starting to see maybe a bit of influence. Maitland-Niles probably one, Granit Xhaka, a couple others there as well. So, Mkhitaryan at the start of the season, well, do we tend to go, let's forget about that and look at Mkhitaryan for the last 6 weeks? Because we are.
I think when we're doing the season's ratings, we can't.
I know, it's fucking hard. Yeah, you're right, though.
That's why I struggle with my score, because they're so far apart. It's like a 9 for the last 6 weeks and a 5 for the first 12 weeks, for example. So I really struggled.
Yeah, it's a tough. So that is another tough one. What you boys going? 8.
I went 7. He went 8.
7 and 8. Yeah, look, I'd probably go on 8 as well for me. Geez, he's almost creeping into the 8.5 to 9. But as you said, Tony, we are going on the whole season, so I hope by the end of this season, leading into next season, we are looking at a 9 for Mkhitaryan, because I'm liking what I'm seeing at the moment. Aaron Ramsey, Tony?
Tough one, just because the amount of minutes he's played, and more recently he's been playing more and he's been playing better. He's been much more influential. Earlier in the season, I just don't think he was playing anywhere near enough. I think he's been good pretty much whenever he's played. It's just, again, a question of has he played. So between a 7.5 and an 8, I'm going to introduce new decimals and go 7.75. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, you get that, Schwinn?
I did. I only got the rating. I'm not sure who we're talking about, though.
Ramsey.
Rambo. Wow, 7.75. That's a harsh mark in my book. I think he's been one of our better players this season, and of course we haven't used him a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, my rating it's on influence on the season. So there's no point. If he'd have played one game and got a 10 out of 10, I wouldn't give someone a 10 for the season because they've only influenced one game. So it's not my question of Ramsey's ability and how he's played. It's how much effect he's had on our campaign.
Yes, look, that's fair. It's very, very hard to agree with that. Disagree with that. I'd go with an 8.5 just because I think whenever we've seen him play, which has been scarce, but it's not been like El Neni, for example. He's been very, very good, and at times he's been, the leader in terms of making sure that the gameplay that we have for the game is being instigated by him. 8.5, I think that's fair, considering I gave Socrates an 8.5 as well.
At the start of the season, I think I said to you boys, and what I said to a couple of other people could have said on this podcast, a player wanting the same money as Ozil, or reported 350k a week, at the start of the season, I'm going, that's pretty crazy. I totally understand why Arsenal let him go. Here we are in March, and I tell you what, boys, I fucking pay this man the 350k. If he wants it, we should have paid it, because I think he's been brilliant. And I think we're really going to miss him. Juventus, they're getting a brilliant deal, and they're getting it for free. I know it is high wages, but I don't know if it's that fucking high for what they're getting. So, I'm leaning towards a 9, but is there room there? I've really been a big fan of him this season, so I've got to go 9 for Ramsey. Ozil, Tony.
In a similar sense to Ramsey, I don't think he's had the stage, or he's been on the pitch enough to get towards the higher numbers, because it's influence on the total season. Look, he has his quiet games, he's had his bad games, he has games where he's excellent, and he divides a fan base so much that one side are going to tell you when he's excellent, the other side are going to tell you when he's poor, and there's arguments for and against. I think on his total impact on the season, I'd probably go 7.5. I think he's had less impact than Ramsey, or he's not been as good as Ramsey when they're both on the pitch, but not far off, and he's also played more games, so he's had more influence. So I think a 7.5 is probably fair.
Okay, Schwinn?
I'd go with half a notch lower. I think considering this contract, considering he came back from international duty much earlier than he was expected to, it seemed like he was going to be up for the task. We obviously heard about the alleged rift between him and Emery at the beginning of the season, and they seem to have sorted their differences out in the past couple of weeks. But still, whenever he's played, he's not done bad things, he's not done overtly good things, but he's been himself in some regard. And I think he's been a shadow of himself. I think he's cocooned a bit more. We know he's someone who's prone to that, and I've expected more from him on occasion, so I'd say a 7 is fair.
Okay, 4.5. Tony, Torreira?
Oh, no elaboration on that, no.
Look, when somebody's got to point out how many chances a player's created to show me that he's been a brilliant player, doesn't buy it for me. And
that's weird though, isn't it? Because he's in the team to create chances.
Mate, he is, and when you got to when fans have got to point out, but he created 3 chances last game, and I think to myself, well, so that's the brilliant what he did. That's what he did. He created 3 chances. I just at 350k as reported for a season, for a week. I just think, fuck me dead. Like, I want more, boys. I want, and when you look at other midfielders, and I know this, he is a special midfielder on his day, or number 10 or whatever, but, and I won't deny that through ball. I can't remember the game. That was amazing. I would love to see that more often. I would love to see that every game. And then when people say to me, but he's this formation and this game against Chelsea isn't for him, or there's always an excuse when it comes to Ozil. There's never a proactive conversation of why he's good. It's always on the back foot to tell me that this is what he did this game, and it's I don't buy it, boys. I'm sorry. Look, if you want, I'll go a 5 because I was only taking the piss. 4.5. Average is 6. He's been a bit below average for me, so we'll go a 5.
Fair enough.
Torreira. Tony.
He's kind of gone the other way to a lot of players. A lot of players, if we'd have done this earlier in the season, I'd have given them low ratings, and I think they've been a bit better in the second half of the season, and it's boosted their ratings. I think Torreira's faded a bit, to be honest. I mean, it showed he didn't start against Tottenham. Away, which is probably the biggest game he played, he was obviously suspended for United. I can't even remember who he played before that, to be honest. I can't remember if he played against Bournemouth. So early on in the season, I'd have been looking at 8.5s, but I think recently his influence has dropped, and we've seen some poor games from him. I think Liverpool away, he was especially poor. We've seen a few more mistakes creep in, and look, we know we can probably pin the reasons why, as to he had a long summer playing in the tournament. He's usually used to a winter break, which he's not had. So there's reasons why, but there's still fact that it's happened. So I'm going to put him with Ramsey at 7.75, but had we done this on Christmas Day, I think I'd have been at the 8.5s, to be honest.
Yeah, it's type of been since January, hasn't it? That I agree, his form has dipped a bit.
Yeah.
Schwinn?
He's a tough one. I mean, for all the reasons that Tony just mentioned. And I want to give him a bit of a higher rating, maybe an 8, just because of the two reasons that Tony touched upon there. That the summer in the World Cup, and then, of course, not having an international break. I'd also want to add that I think Emery didn't manage him very well in the holiday period. I think he only rested him when he was very much in the red zone, to borrow a term from Arsene Wenger. I think he could have probably done with the rest a bit earlier, and that never came. Going off of expectation, I think I want to weigh my rating a bit. I think he's been exactly what we've expected from him. Of course, not in the last couple of months where he's dropped off a bit, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt there because we've seen what he's capable of. He's also proved to have a bit more in his locker where it comes to combining in the attack and racing forward a bit, leaving Granit to control the midfield. So I've been pleasantly surprised with him in more than what I expected. So an 8, I think, would be fair for me.
He's been a real surprise for me because, as you boys know, I watch a fair bit of the Italian league, and I said to you at the start of the season, I said, I know the player, but is he an outstanding player? I couldn't tell you and then Tony type of said to me, but I suppose when, a player in his position, he probably doesn't really stand out for you. But since he's played at Arsenal, and maybe I watch Arsenal more closely, he has been standing out for me, and there has been times where we've gone, fuck me dead. Look, I had me and a mate were talking the other day. Is he one of the most underrated, players in the Premier League? But because do people appreciate on what he actually does? And for me, he's probably got to be one of the best signings in the Premier League so far this season. So his form has dipped a lot, but I think there was a couple of podcasts ago where we were talking about things like fatigue, and he was playing week out, week in, and it was, you could see that the fatigue was it was catching up with him. So I think I agree with what Schwinn said. Emery, I don't think he managed him properly through that Christmas period, and you do obviously see it. I give Ramsey a 9. I'm type of leaning towards an 8 to an 8.5 for Torreira. I think there is room for improvement, definitely, but I'll go on 8.5, Schwinn, because I think he has been good, and he's probably one of the signings of the season. So
Just going on that, I remember in and around the Christmas time, it was like Torreira signing of the season, no doubt, was a popular opinion, not just amongst Arsenal fans, but it seemed like it was accepted. Everyone in the league sort of accepted that. And now I think you're seeing a few more questions come into it, and it has been because his form has dipped. So that's the reason I marked him down slightly. It's not based on expectations or whatever. It's just purely on what he's done. And as I said, if we'd done it at that point, it'd definitely be at sort of 8.59.
Yep. Denis Suarez, Tony, from what you've seen so far.
I mean, look, again, he's not done a single thing wrong. He's not featured anywhere near enough. I also can't think of anything right he's done apart from he beat a couple of people against Man United and played a through ball that was quite nice. That's his most recent game, so hopefully that's a sign of things to come. But at the moment, I've got to go 6 for the same reasons as I gave El Neni a 6 and I gave Jenko a 6.
Schwinn? You there, Schwinn? Schwinn's dropped out.
Yep.
Yeah, goaty.
Sorry.
Yeah, right.
I go with the 6.5 just because I gave Mustafi a 6. I think Mustafi's made more mistakes. I mean, it's unfair to compare the two for various reasons, but I think a 6.5 is fair because he's done less wrong proportionately than Mustafi has. So a bit more relativism going there.
It was a weird sign on loan. Do I want him at the end of the season? I'm still undecided. There's a buyout clause, I believe. There's 20 mil or something on it.
Something like that.
Yeah. So, look, I don't dislike the player. I don't dislike any Arsenal player. But, yeah, I just have to go. What he did, there's a couple of things that Man U he did well. I'm with you, Tony, of 6. Guendouzi, Tony?
Massively above expectation. So let's make that clear. He's well above what anyone expected. But I'm doing these ratings on how they've performed versus other players, not on what I expected of them, because that would change everything. If it was what I expected him, it would be a 10 because I expected fuck all, and we've had a lot more than that. In terms of general what we've got from him, I would probably say a 7.5. I think he's been very, very good at times, and again, way above expectation. But I think we've also ignored a lot of his limitations because he's performing above expectation. So every time, like I highlighted it time and time again, especially against City away, which I know is a hard game, but it's just one I remember off the top of my head, where he lost his runner at least 6 times. And that creates chances for the other team. I think he neglects his... I think he's not very good defensively, to be honest. And he'll learn and it will come. But as in the here and now, what he's done for this season, I think a 7.5.
Okay, Schwinn?
I'd go half a notch higher with an 8. I've been extremely impressed by him. And I am factoring in what I expected of him as opposed to what Tony just said. And look, I completely agree with Tony. Just to highlight a couple of other instances, United at home in the Cup, he just let Paul Pogba waltz right past him and never quite made up that ground. Rennes, the first leg, same thing. He's just come on much more fresh than Nacho or Kolasinac, who I think both of them were on the ground at that time and never quite made it up there to stop Ismail Sarr, I think it was, who headed that goal in. So he does need to learn a lot. But if I weigh that against what I thought he was going to be like and what he has been able to do at times, it's not easy to step into that Arsenal midfield. And we obviously have a lot of issues there. He's got to partner with new players, and he's got to partner with someone like Torreira, who's new to the league as well. So it's not an easy situation to be in. And I think, I don't want to say for a 19-year-old, but for a 19-year-old, he has been mighty impressive.
Guendouzi. Who was Guendouzi? If I said, this time 12 months ago, I don't think anybody fucking knew who he was. I thought he was going on loan. I think most of us probably thought he was going to go out on loan. So expectations, I had 0 expectations because I didn't know anything about him. So he definitely exceeded everything that I thought. I was, wow. Price-wise, what we paid for him, brilliant, thank you. his value will keep going up. He'll be one in the future, definitely. I think he'll have a long career at Arsenal. This season, just a little bit loose for me. Brilliant, but just a little bit loose, and it's just a part of. He'll learn, he'll develop, he'll come along nicely. I'm around about the 7.5. Nothing really outstanding, but he's been above average. So, and I don't even know what average is for Guendouzi because I don't know what I expected. So, yeah, a 7.5 for me, actually. Okay, Granit Xhaka. Tony.
I'm definitely not going to give him as high as you do. I think, in general, off the top of my head, he's cut out a lot of what has now become known as Mustafi moments, but they probably used to be Xhaka moments. I can't think of many glaring in the last few. I know he started the season with a couple. I remember he was horrendous at Chelsea away. But then I think 2 weeks after, he had a great game against Newcastle, and I don't think we're getting the huge errors as much from him anymore. He's another one. He's another cog in the machine for me. I think you notice him more when he's not there. When he's not there, you realise what you're missing. He's stepped up in the terms of a role I disagree with in terms of a captain's role. He's stepped up massively, whether he's got the armband on or not. Has he been... He's not been better than Ramsey, but because he's played much more games, he's probably had more of an influence. So I'll go an 8, but I mean, I could be swayed on that, to be honest.
Okay. Schwinn?
I'll go with an 8.5, the same as I gave to Ramsey, just because I agree with Tony. I don't think he's been better than Ramsey, but he's played more games than Ramsey. And, I mean, look, I'd say he's been one of the best players at the Arsenal this season. I think he will be in the conversation when that comes up later this season. And I mean, look, you know what you're going to get from him, right? And that for a team like us is very important. No one else in the team can do that job. Even someone like Guendouzi, who has impressed all of us, he's not quite at that level yet. And he's a very, very clever player. I don't think it gets talked about enough. You know, me and Tony were talking about this the other day, where he is so good at getting himself between, you know, the opposing player and the ball, and just getting those fouls for him that just sets the pressure off, and, you know, we can sort of recycle the ball and get attacking again. Those things matter. You know, those things are something a leader is able to foresee and then able to execute. And if you don't, then you have a break on you, and which we know never ends well with us. So I'm a big Granit fan. I always have been. Maybe not as big as Tez, definitely not as big as Tez, but I think he's been one of the better midfielders and certainly one of the better players, I'd say, throughout the squad. So an 8.5 for me.
To all the Arsenal fans who said Granit Xhaka was a waste of money, go and get yourself fucked. I'm going to tell you, boys, he is a cog in the machine, a leader, mate. He is, like, what he does for this team just is amazing. And it's actually funny to sit back and watch how many people come out and say, oh, shit, where's Granit? Jeez, we really missed him this week. But a month before, they were going, oh, fuck this Granit, he's useless. And, look at that, big long shots again. And do something with the fucking ball. Well, Tony, you use a saying, mate, watch football with your eyes. And I tell you, if you actually sit there and watch what he does for the Arsenal, people actually realise how instrumental he is at this Arsenal team. In saying that, I give Ramsey a 9. I always think there's room for improvement. And if there's one thing that I have noticed with Granit, which I would definitely like improving, is I appreciate how he gets fouled and he takes that away from, to let everybody have a breather and things like that. I don't know, some people say that that's the reason why he took that foul. But he has got quite a few yellow cards this season. And So that's type of where I would like to see him. And I could go through and if they're worthy of a yellow, I don't know. To be honest, I can't remember every yellow card that he got, but I know it's pretty high. So, in saying that though, always room for improvement. So I'll give him a 9.5. He's the best player at Arsenal at the moment. Tony Lacazette.
Here we go. Been very good, especially in the last 2 months, I'd say. But even as a whole, he's definitely been better than he was last season. It still frustrates the hell out of me, but he is a very good footballer. And I think as well, we've seen him play more with other people, which is what I was crying out for all along. And in that role, he flourishes when he gets to play with an Aubameyang or a Danny Welbeck or basically someone that's going to stretch the defence for him so he can come short and do what he is very good at. Huge influence on our season, which is basically what I've gone by. I still think he could score a few more, and I'd imagine if you spoke to him, he would say he probably feels he should have scored a few more with some of the chances he's had. I'll go an 8.5, which I think is the highest I've given anyone so far, or at least joined with, because he has had a huge impact on our season.
Okay, Schwinn?
I want to be a bit more critical of Lacazette because I expect a bit more. Look, if you compare him to what he was like last season, I think there's a marked improvement, especially in the physicality. I think he's grown to relish that. I've said that a few times on the podcast. But still, there are certain things about him that work in a system, that work when Welbeck's there, that work when Aubameyang is there. But I am never comfortable going into a game when Lacazette is our only out-and-out attacker. And I think that says something. I think that it's the Mesut Ozil argument in a lot of ways, that you have to tailor the setup, the formation to the player. And I agree with that criticism for Mesut Ozil, and I agree with that criticism for Lacazette. As I look down my ratings, I've given Bellerin an 8 and Sokratis an 8.5. It's tough because I want to give him an 8.5 as well. But actually, I'll give him an 8.25 just to cover my bases.
Okay. I actually like Lacazette, funny enough. I didn't see much of him in the French league, and because I don't watch much French league. He was on the radar for 2 years or something that I know of. Lots of people were saying, Lacazette, yeah, we're going to be this is the forward we're after. It's not what I expected, I'll be honest. I'm probably not disappointed, but I didn't know exactly what type of player he was. But I have learnt a lot about Lacazette, and I've appreciated what he does at the Arsenal and drops back and he can manage to beat players, and he's not that target man, but he's you can almost say like a deep shadow striker type player. I think you had a conversation, Schwinn. Would you test Lacazette at a 10 or such, or something like that? But I can't remember what you said, but I think you said it might work. But I think Tony was dead against it, weren't you, Tony? But anyway, look, Lacazette, I've got to give him a rating, and I would say at least an 8.5. I think there is room for improvement. Yeah, 8.5.
So with the reputation we have on the podcast as me being Lacazette's biggest enemy and I hate him more than anyone else and I'm the devil, I've given him the highest rating. Brilliant.
What do you give him?
Same as you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but as I said, this reputation of Tony hates Lacazette, Tony never wants to see Lacazette play football again, blah, blah, blah.
You reckon he could work as a 10? Yeah, you said no, didn't you?
No, I mean, my concern, I think in role, it depends what you expect of him. If you expect him to start making tackles at left back, which people seemingly want Ozil to do when he's playing at 10, then no, because he may do that, and Lacazette is able to do that, but then he also wouldn't be in the correct position to be playing as a 10, so to speak. So I think he could do the job, but if you start expecting him to do all the things that everyone seemingly expects Ozil to do, then no. But I don't think anyone can do that. I think what people expect of Ozil at 10, I don't think any player could do that. I don't hear anyone else moaning when De Bruyne doesn't make a last man tackle or David Silva doesn't make a last man tackle. But I'm not sure if it's Arsenal fans' expectations or if it's just they don't really like Ozil, so they're going to make up any excuse to. You know what it gets like when you don't like someone, you moan at absolutely everything they do.
Yeah.
And if you're going to take that measure with anyone that plays at 10, then no one will ever be successful.
Mm-hmm. Plus, our past number 10s are hard to beat, aren't they?
But again, look, I'm not comparing Bergkamp and Ozil, but no one ever expected Bergkamp to be picking up the ball right back. I think it's just one of them things that for whatever reason, whether it be the money or his language style or whatever it is, that people just find different things to criticise Ozil with. And as I said, if that becomes our expectation, we're going to be a very angry fan base for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Aubameyang. Tony.
For me, I'm got again influence on season. He's our top scorer. He's our marksman. He's our go-to man when we're looking for a goal. Is his all-round game as good as Lacazette's? No. Has he had more impact on the score sheet? Yes. So I'm going to give him the same rating.
Okay.
Could he have done? Of course, he could have done better. That's why it's an 8.5. Sorry, just in case you don't remember.
Yep.
And of course, he could have done better. Of course, he's missed chances. Of course, his link-up play isn't brilliant. But overall effect on the team, he's the one that puts the ball in the goal. So.
Okay, Schwinn.
For the very same reasons Tony mentioned, I'm going to give him a 9. I think that's the highest rating I've given today to anyone. I think he's our player of the season. Could have scored more goals. Should have scored more goals. If you look at the underlying numbers, they still say that he has scored more than he should have. But, we've seen him obviously miss a penalty against Tottenham.
I think last time I checked, he'd dipped below for the first time.
Then maybe the table I saw is a bit outdated, so I stand corrected. But again, that's a plus in his column, I'd say. He's missed a few sitters. If just rewind to Rennes, 2 goals he could have scored late on that he should have scored, but then of course he didn't. And I think what people don't realize about Aubameyang is his movement is just so exceptional to get on the end of chances. The amount of times he does is no mean feat, and he is so good at that. There's no one like him at that. And I'd be hard-pressed to be convinced that there was someone else who stands out as a player of the season for us. I mean, of course, there's time to go, but at this point, without him in the team, we'd be really, really struggling. And for that reason, he's my highest-rated player.
I'm a huge fan of Aubameyang. I like everything that he does. I seen a bit of him at Dortmund, and I know he was having the troubles there. It went towards the end and, wasn't really performing. I thought when Aubameyang came, I thought he was a bit of a show pony, which he is, and he is, but I've come to like that about him. I just think he's a big influence in the background of the team as well. Like, not only on the pitch is he brilliant, but I don't know, do you boys get that vibe that he's joking around with players and just having a fun time? And just for me, I think he's a lot of influence on the team in the background as well as on the field and off the field. I give Ramsey a 9. I give Granit a 9.5, and I got to put Aubameyang up with Granit. I really like him, so 9.5. Alex Iwobi, Tony.
This is a very difficult one because he underperforms, or what we expect of him, so often. But he does a lot of good things that don't end up in anything. So he'll carry the ball 30, 40 yards, and then he'll just pass it off. But with suddenly 40 yards up the pitch, and it's one of them things that's never really rated in football, especially. There's other sports like where one of the stats that they actually use quite a lot is yardage gained. So in rugby and I think in American football, they have quite a big thing of how much yards you gain. And if you've taken the ball from your own half and 40 yards and you're 25 yards out from their goal, that's a huge gain. But it's not a stat that's really looked at in football. And he does do that well. He's very press resistant because he's so strong and his arse is so big. but the top end of the pitch is just frustrating. His final ball has improved, but it's very often off. His shooting has always been abysmal. 7.4, 7.5.
Okay, Schwinn?
I'd go with a 7. I think he's been played a lot. I think that's something that's worked against him. To put that sort of burden on him hasn't quite worked, and of course, that has been because of how Emery has dealt with Mesut Ozil, and maybe it was to throw Iwobi in there because he didn't want to throw Mesut in there, and at times Mkhitaryan was of course unavailable. But I mean, qualitatively, is he ever going to be that good? Maybe not. But this season, I've not been impressed by him. We've seen a lot of him, and as Tony said, there are good things he does. And of course, we only have 2 ball progressors, Mkhitaryan and Iwobi, and still, I think Mkhitaryan has done a better job, and we've been quite critical of Mkhitaryan on here at times. But I've not been impressed by him a lot. I think he does a few things well. We've spoken about where we see his ideal role as, and I think we all agree that on the bench as the third option, is somewhere where we see him, and that should reflect in my rating. So I'd go with a 7.
It's a real tough one. Could lose a couple of African listeners here, but no, I don't know. It was
They're gone already, mate. They're gone.
Well, in that case, look, Iwobi plays like a cat trying to bury a turd on a frozen pond. He just, for me, gets there and he just no finished product. He can manage to get there and then nothing. Fizzles out, mate. All the lead in his pencil and no one to write to. It's just so fucking frustrating. But he just... look, average is a 6. 5.5. I don't like him. Sorry, boys. Welbeck. Tony.
I mean, I'm the self-proclaimed biggest Danny Welbeck fan. Not the biggest. I'm a huge Danny Welbeck fan, as everyone will know. I think he gives us so much whilst being quite bad at football, which is quite surprising. I think we've missed him. I think there's games where we could have gone with just putting the ball in behind or going long and letting him run onto it and use his strength, his pace, his power. I don't think we'd have lost the away games in the Europa League we have with Danny there. And it's meant that, it may sound stupid, but we've had to play 2 extra games in a sense, because if Danny plays against Barté away and Rennes away and we don't lose them, we don't have to go so hard in the second leg. So I think there has been a huge miss, and I still hope, I don't think we will, I'm almost certain we won't, but I think he's worthy of another contract. I think he was playing really well at the start of the season. He got injured in November. I think I may be wrong on this, but up until a couple of weeks ago, he was still our 3rd top scorer. I don't know if that's changed now. They're in minor competitions, but still someone has to do that job. So Aubameyang and Lacazette didn't have to. I'd go probably a 7.5.
Okay, Schwinn?
I'll go a bit higher with the 7.75. I mean, apart from what Tony mentioned, I think there's a couple of other factors that just echo how much we've missed Welbeck. A would be our dynamism. Going into games, it was very difficult for us initially to judge how we're going to line up. And Welbeck, for all his inabilities when it comes to finishing and not really being a quote-unquote footballer, really had you guessing. Is it going to be 4 at the back? Is it going to be 2 up top? Is Welbeck going to be one of those 2? Or is Welbeck going to be on the wing? He instilled a lot of doubt in the manager, in the opposing manager. More importantly, I'd say he was one that was really giving a lot of competition to Aubameyang and Lacazette. I think initially, when we were still, chopping and changing a lot, Welbeck was always on the heels and he was pushing these players further forward. This is not to say that Aubameyang and Lacazette have taken a back seat, but I'd argue that if Welbeck was still around, they'd be still going hard and harder than they have in the last couple of months. it's one of those arguments again that we missed him more than we realized when he's not been around. So he merits another contract for me as well. I think he's already resumed some ball-to-ball training, so that's good to hear. Maybe we will still get to see him in an Arsenal shirt. Will he get a contract? It's going to be very hard. I don't think he will, but I'd be okay with seeing us give him maybe a 2-3 year contract if he's up for that.
Sorry, what was your rating on? I was signed out.
7.75.
Okay. Yeah, Welbeck for me, I think it's crazy if we don't give him a contract. I like Welbeck. I like what he does. I appreciate what he does. And since talking to you, Tony, on this podcast, I've actually learnt to appreciate him a lot more because, I tend to watch him a little bit closer and think, Welbeck, well, I feel sorry for the bloke. He got injured and his contract's up, and I really think next year, boys, we could be saying, wow, if only we had Welbeck. I don't know how they replace him, to be honest. Like, you've got a Lacazette and a Aubameyang in your team, but who do you get as a third striker to fill a Welbeck void? I don't know. I wouldn't even know who to think of. Like, we let Giroud go, so I don't know. In saying that, look, rating him, I thought he was playing really well before he got injured, so I'm around the 7.5 mark as well, Schwinn.
Just to add to your point, as he's also a homegrown player, so that's always a plus point as well.
Yeah. Now, just pull me up if you want to do. I think that's all the players we've got, unless you want to do Eddie. Medley, Tutu. Who else we got there? That's about it. None of them boys. Okay, so Emery will do our manager. Tony.
This is a tough one for me because, as I've pretty much highlighted on every podcast this season, we're massively ahead of where I expected us to be in terms of points and position in the table. I didn't even really think we would fight for the top four. I thought we'd be like, maybe they'll get top four, but they're the fifth team and they're 5 or 6 points off. I thought we'd be in and around that level. And look, we still could be, but I thought we'd be in around that level the whole season. And we're not. We're clearly above that. We're in a fight for third. And if someone come from the future and said Arsenal finished third, you wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't be like, oh, wow, I never saw that coming. Whereas if they'd have said that at the start of the season, you'd have been like, yeah, go fuck yourself. You ain't been to the future. But I still argue, well, for me, in terms of style, I still don't really know what we do.
You mean go fuck yourself, you ain't been to the future?
If someone from the future came and said that in August, you'd tell they're lying.
Oh, fuck it. It just sunk in there. Get going.
But in terms of style and the way we play, and also some of the decisions he's made, I don't think he's dealt with the Ramsey situation well. I don't think he's dealt with the Ozil situation well. He brought Koscielny back too early. Was that forced? I guess we don't really know. The Iwobi's overplayed. So there's been a lot of bizarre decisions, a lot of bizarre team selections where I kind of feel like he's not given us the chance to win before the game started, or Huddersfield away, where, I mean, it's become famous now that we basically played 8 defensive players. Which, again, is a bizarre decision. So on one hand, very good. On another hand, not too good. I think I'm probably going to go an 8, because I guess at the be-all and end-all, if at the end of the season we're third, that's all that matters. Or fourth, if we get back to Europe, because that was, for me, his only aim. And it looks like at the moment he's probably odds-on favourite to achieve that. So I think it'd be very difficult to mark someone down when their aims look like they're going to be achieved. So there is some negatives for me, but I think at this point it's an 8.
Okay. Schwinn?
Go with a 7.5. I mean, Tony obviously spoke about a lot of things there which are on point. I mean, for me, it's how far we've come. And, you know, if you'll rewind to the first half of the season, we were not starting games well, but making changes at halftime or early into the second half, and then being able to get the result. The holiday period, of course, was very tough. It usually is tough for a new manager who's not used to playing over Christmas. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there and discard that from my judgment. And then to the second half of the season, where we've started well, but then we've shown some of those same gaps in our game that we were seeing under Arsene Wenger, leaving empty spaces, being vulnerable on the counter. And where Emery can fix that is through his substitutions. And in most cases, I'd argue, those subs haven't quite worked. It's been someone like rolling the dice and seeing if that works out. And that doesn't quite scream to me as a manager who knows what he's doing. I mean, that sounds very wrong. It sounds like a very harsh criticism. It's not meant as one. I'm just using a turn of phrase here. But again, it's very hard to argue with our league position. It's very hard to argue with we're still in the Europa League. So this season could still be a massive success in that regard. We are still in the hunt for a trophy, and we could still get top 4. So I want to give him time. I want to give him the next season based on how that goes. But from what I've seen so far, of course, Tony spoke about style, which we all care about. It seems to me he's not quite had a grasp of that just yet. And considering that he was given this job on the basis of this dossier that he had compiled, knowing everything about every player we had, plus having spent a lot of money in the summer to get 4 or 5 players, I'd expect a bit more concrete style and a bit more concrete ideology. So hence the 7.5, just half a notch lower than what Tony gave him.
Okay. Look, when we started the season and I seen, Man City, we got beat. Chelsea, we got beat. I thought as a new manager, I thought he's come out and against West Ham, like, how's this going to travel? And you got to keep in mind, like, I've come on this podcast and none of us have never been an Emery out and things, but when you watch, Arsenal, when you're going through, what was 22 games undefeated, and then it come to a bit of a halt. We had that game against Southampton that we lost against, and we were all thinking, oh, shit. And then Tottenham, where was that? That was in a cup game or something. And what I'm getting at is it's been it was a cruisy ride, and then it was a bit of a rough patch, but it was almost like people were saying, oh, shit, started questioning Emery and his tactics and things. And then the real cruncher was Liverpool, 5-1 against Liverpool, lost. That type of blew a lot of us all out of the water. Was it the end of December or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, December 27th or 28th, something like that.
Yeah, so that blew us out of the water. There was a Man United game there. I remember a loss. It was a bit patchy, and then you get in the Europa League, and it was a Bate and Rennes. Like, I just don't know what happened out of them 2 games. Yes, we're still in the Europa League. How, I got no fucking idea, but he's had a really topsy-turvy type of season, but we're still there for the top 3. We're still in Europa League. He's ticking all the boxes. But one thing I will praise him for is, and Schwinn, you type of put it as a bit of a negative on him and said, one thing that we all thought is Emery is one of these managers who, well, he said reports that he's going to get the best out of the players and individual performances, and I'm starting to see that now. I think it's probably an unpopular opinion that Granit Xhaka is having the best season since he's been at Arsenal. There's a good shout for Maitland-Niles, Mkhitaryan, Aaron Ramsey,
and
yeah. Sorry? No, you cut off.
I think he was talking to someone else and forgot to mute.
Oh, okay. So, on them players, Guendouzi, we've all said he's been very good. So I don't know if we're starting to see a bit of an Emery influence come through at the back end of the season, because he's had that time to work with these players, which I think I type of would have rather maybe have them couple of bad patches at the start of the season and then to see the improvement. If people ask me how Arsenal play tactically, I couldn't tell you still. I couldn't tell you the formation he comes out with. I think that's a bit wacky as well at times. But so it's hard to shine off that 8 that you give him, Tony. It really is, because he's there, he's competing, he's in Europa League, he's ticking all your boxes. So it's really hard to say a 6, but 6 weeks down the track and we get, touch wood, we get 5th and knocked out of Europa League, well then your score probably drops down to about a 6, doesn't it? So at this point in time, I've got to say an 8. Okay, where do we go to from here? That's about it, isn't it?
Well, just, right, so who, I think I know both your answers. If the vote was now, who's your player of the year? And I know you don't remember your numbers, so you're just going to have to go with someone.
Mate, it's really a toss-up for me for Granit Xhaka and Aubameyang. I obviously, Granit's there. If Aubameyang takes Golden Boot, I have to give it Aubameyang.
Okay, I mean, obviously Swin answered quite strongly that he thinks it's going to be, or his is Aubameyang. Look, I think off the top of my head, I gave Lacazette and Aubameyang my 2 joint highest, and I can tell you for free, Lacazette's going to win it. There's no debate with that. Lacazette will win our Player of the Year.
You reckon?
I would, 100%.
Yeah, right.
It's a fan vote.
Yeah.
It's voted by fans, so you know where it's going.
It's going to go there.
I would go Aubameyang as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Aubameyang, I've loved everything he's done, and geez, if he gets the Golden Boot, how could you go against him? Like, Granit will never get it because probably a lot of people on the fan vote, they probably don't appreciate what they see in Granit, and they're so quick to judge him. Like, if he has a bad game next week, you watch the hate. Here he is. And I was going to touch on this, but looks, I don't know if Schwinn's back with us or not. His comments.
I am. Apologies.
That's all right, mate. His comments during the week. But just quickly, Tony just asked, who do you think will be the player of the year? If you had to answer
Aubameyang.
Aubameyang. Yeah.
Aubameyang has to be, yeah. When you're producing those sort of numbers, got to be him.
Do you think he'll actually get it?
Yeah.
Okay, Lacazette will get it.
There's a lot of Lacazette fans out there, isn't there? But anyway,
well, I don't think it'll. I mean, just to go off of it, just a bit more. I don't think it'll be an either or choice. I think people defend Lacazette a lot, and in some cases, rightly so. Sometimes they go a bit overboard, but I don't think it's necessarily a Lacazette versus Aubameyang thing. You know, we've seen that before, certainly with Ramsey versus Wilshere a lot in the past. I don't necessarily think that's something we've seen yet from the fan base. So I think people will be comfortable in giving Aubameyang the fan vote, as is the case.
Lacazette will get it by over 20% from the next person.
I reckon if you boys put a poll out on Twitter, Lacazette or Aubameyang, I probably agree with Tony. Lacazette probably win that poll.
Well, let's put it to the test.
I don't even think there's a problem. Look, my prediction, hopefully, I don't know if people have heard this by the time they're voting, but Lacazette by over. So if we're only doing it between the two of them, if we're doing the poll, it'll be Lacazette will have more than 60%. On the end of season, when Arsenal do their official poll for Player of the Season, Lacazette will have maybe not 15% more than the next person.
So I agree. Yeah, probably. I think Aubameyang would definitely deserve it. And look, even as I was saying, Granit, if he gets man of the match for the next 6 games, I don't even think he would get it. Like, people are, I just don't think he would. I just don't think. Thoughts on his comments during the week?
Very ill-timed. I've not seen the actual interview, so I don't even know what language it was in. So I don't know if there's been any misquotations or mistranslations if it was in another language. I think at best they're very, very stupid comments to make. They're just unnecessary. And And look, we criticised, like, it was in the papers the week before, or in the media the week before, that Pogba said, like, Real Madrid is anyone's dream, and we're all laughing at United fans. And then, in a roundabout way, Xhaka's gone and said the same thing. And it's also a bit of a kick in the teeth that for a long time, I don't want to say he's not been good enough, but he's had periods where he's not been good enough for a long time. And it feels like for the first time, he's had a sustained period of being solid and good and dependable every week. And it seems like as soon as he has that one good moment, he thinks he can start flirting with someone else. It's like getting with the ugly girl, and then like she goes from a whatever into a swan, ugly duckling into a swan, and then suddenly starts wanting to leave you for all the other people. It's just like, fuck off.
I can tell you now, if he does leave, I'll be fucking off him. I'll run the cunt over. I fucking...
I don't think.
No, but like, I just... because from what he's shown me over the last few years is that it's type has blown me out of the water a bit, because he comes across, like you said before, like that old captain model, loyalty, and that's type of what I've liked about him. I love Tony Adams as well. And Granit's type of being that player.
I think the difference is I think Adams had Arsenal in his heart, and I think to an extent, which is one of the reasons I love Jack. Jack had Arsenal in his heart. I think Granit is just that type of person. I think Granit could do that for anyone. Adams couldn't have. And I always said, like, everyone will know to listen to this last season, that I always said Jack would never be the same player elsewhere. He would do it for Arsenal and England because they're in his heart. I mean, we haven't seen because he's been injured, but I don't think Granit's the same as them. I think that's just him, which is a great quality. This is not a criticism. But I don't think it's the same, whereas Adams always said, I didn't even look at contracts, I just signed them because I was playing for Arsenal. And Granit, I don't think is... I think Granit's just that type of person, and it isn't a particular love of Arsenal, it's just the way he is. Just
where he goes, and that's he's just that type of leader, natural leader type thing.
Yeah, I think he would be that. I think if you put him in a Saturday team in the league, in the park, I think he would be the same and show that as he does if he played for Arsenal, Real Madrid, Southampton, like name any team. I think that's just how Granit Xhaka is.
Yeah. You want to add anything there, Schwinn? Your thoughts on these comments? I don't know if you've seen it or not. I forgot to ask you earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I came across, again, some translated versions. And, I mean, if I want to read into it a bit more, it seemed like he said this is not the last stop. And there could be more. It wasn't as if... It wasn't a Paul Pogba comment that I dream of Real Madrid. It was a bit more subtle. And... you know what? I don't really mind it, to be honest. I definitely see logic in what Tony said, and I don't agree with you. I don't think you'll run him over Tez. I think you'll run with him wherever he's going. Just for the record.
No. I'll be off him, mate. Like a fucking I'll be well off him, mate. I'm telling you, he'd be about as popular as a turd in the fishbowl. That gun.
Well, the thing is, especially for you, because you've had his back when he has been a bit shit, and then suddenly when he gets good and you feel like you can start rubbing it in people's faces, like I told you, if he fucks off, it's like it completely kills your argument.
Oh yeah, I'd be spewing. I'd be fucking pissed right off, mate. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I mean, just to finish my thought there, I think loyalty is an old commodity in this sport now. And I mean, particularly with him, when you see the way he's been treated by us fans, whether it's sitting oceans away on a podcast or it's fans outside the stadium who, try to surround his car when he's with his missus and are saying all sorts of vile things on Instagram in various different ways they can. How can you expect someone to develop that bond with the club? And even if they're not that sort of a person, to me, it seems like we ask for more than we give. And I think that's a bit unfair on the players in today's age where they're treated as commodities, essentially. So I don't think his comments, A, were as extreme as Pogba's. And B, even if they were, I'd be okay with it. Like I would see where he's coming from. I wouldn't appreciate it. It's definitely not ideal. But, I think you got to put yourself in his shoes and see why he might be saying that. Maybe there's interest, for all we know. Maybe his agent has been called by someone. I don't know.
I was just about to say, I don't want to pretend that I'm protecting anybody or siding with anyone here. But just another spin on it. Do you think, and Tony, you can chime in here, do you think his agent has said, like, I don't know, when's his contract? 2022, isn't it? But
Not sure.
No, I haven't got enough hand. But do you think that his agents popped up and said, hey, you're playing pretty well, young fella. Maybe just throw something out there and we'll go to the negotiation table in 12 months. Do you think that might be a, option? That's why he said something. But it just seems weird to say it now, doesn't it? If you're going to say that, you'd say it at the end of the year.
For me, look, it may be the agent behind him, but he's a big boy. He's come out and said it. Whether he's being told to or not, I can't. Look, I understand fully how football works and how agents work, but the only person I can sit and lay the blame at, if I do think anything's been done wrong, is him, because it's come out of his mouth. If he didn't want it, even if your agent tells you to say it, and again, look, you all know I've worked in the industry. Yeah. If the agent tells you to say it and you don't want to say it, you don't say it. The agent works for you, not the other way around. So your agent can say to you, it would be a good idea to say this, we could get you more money, or we could get you a move, or whatever. If you think that's wrong, you don't say it. You're their boss, not the other way around. No. And I think people often get that confused.
I just looked. He's contract to 30/6/2023, so it's a bit early to be singing that tune. Unless you want.
It should also be stressed. I mean, we've already said this before, but it should also be stressed that we do not know what the original quotes are. For all we know, they're either inaccurate or poor translations of what was said, and we're just reading too much into it for no reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any other news you boys want to touch on before we go? Any other things you've heard, Sean?
No, it's just been Tottenham fans and their videos online, which are very funny, to be honest, of them dancing in the concourse at their new stadium.
Jeez, they're a pain in the arse, them cunts, aren't they?
Well,
it's almost as if they're asking to be made fun of at this point. Well, it has been for a while, to be honest.
It's annoying me, and I've seen a lot of tweets go around. Look, the stadium clearly looks unbelievable. Let's not be bitter about it. But it's annoying me how the media are going, oh, look at Spurs' brilliant new £1 billion stadium. No, it's a £500 million stadium that they fucked up, and it's also a year late. So great venue. By the looks, I can't wait to go there next season, if I'm going to be honest. But let's calm down with the praise.
Oh, no, yeah, it's ridiculous. Actually, it is ridiculous. Yeah. Schwinn, with them dancing around, send me that video. I'm going to put some Thomas the Tank Engine music to that fucking dance.
I'd be happy to.
We'll tweet that shit out. What was I going to say? Oh, do you want to touch briefly on the Newcastle game before we go?
Can do.
Predicted lineup, Tony?
That's a difficult one because of international breaks and whatnot. I expect Aubameyang and Lacazette to both play. Ozil's obviously not gone on international breaks, so it makes sense. I have no idea if Mkhitaryan's gone with Armenia. From what I've seen, we've got quite a strong big group in Dubai. Ramsey's come back from Wales duty injured. Obviously, we don't know how injured he is, if it's a proper injury or I can't be bothered to play an international football injury. Ramsey doesn't usually have them, to be fair to him. I think a very similar team to what we saw against United and obviously Rennes. Very similar team. I can't see too many changes from that.
Okay. Schwinn?
Yep, exact same. I think maybe Ramsey will be given a rest, if just a precautionary rest if the injury is not ideal. Guendouzi comes in for him because I think Torreira is still suspended for that one, isn't he?
Yeah.
So Guendouzi might come in alongside Granit in there, and we see our three up front in Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Ozil. I think the team pretty much picks itself at this point, which we've not said a lot under Emery, but when you're enjoying this bout of form, I think you want to keep giving those players a go, especially when some of those players haven't really traveled for international duty.
Mustafi or Lichtsteiner?
Mustafi.
Neither.
Neither?
No, it'll be, I think it'll be a back five. Ainsley wing back, and then Monreal, Socrates, and Koscielny as a back three.
Oh, yeah, okay. Prediction, Schwinn?
I think again it'll be a tough one. Yeah, Rafa is very, very good at organizing. Away from home, of course, he's going to put all his eggs in that basket. I think it'll be a bit tough. International breaks never help in that regard. Go for a slim 2-1 victory.
With Rafa, I wonder how much it's affecting the team in these last 6 weeks. I think they're pretty crucial too for Newcastle. Because it's a tight race. I haven't got the ladder in front of me, so I'm not real sure where they are sitting, but they could slide down. The contract negotiations, he's out of contract and there's still nothing signed, nothing done. I wonder what effect that has on Newcastle at the moment, on the team. So that'd obviously probably be playing a bit of a part. Is Rafa going to go? Is he? Because they all seem to like him there, so I think it's silly if they don't re-sign him, but...
I think it's more on the owner's situation rather than anything else.
Oh, okay. So I just wonder whether that's playing a bit on Newcastle's mind, which I hope it is for Arsenal's sake. So I'm thinking a 3-1. Aubameyang, Lacazette score. And Granit Xhaka to score. What a legend that bloke is at the moment. I feel bad because I said I was going to run him over. I really do, eh? I'm going to send him a message on Instagram. Little kisses. Kiss. Because I send him.
Have you seen the last ones you've sent him?
Yeah, me and him talk all the time, mate. He listens to the podcast because I send him the links to the podcast as well.
Don't send him the link for this one.
No, it won't be. Okay, boys. We'll be back in 7 days, I suppose. 7, 8 days, something like that.
8 days.
8 days,
Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, I mightn't be here because it's is a Tuesday, but anyway, we'll see how we go. Righto, boys, thank you.
Were you not even going to ask Tony for a prediction anymore? Just given up completely on him?
Mate, I've been asking for how long have I been asking? I've just given up.
See, today was the 1 week I was going to give one, but now you've excluded me.
Bullshit. Okay. Righto. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And you can get in touch with us at @clockend_talk on Twitter. We're also on Facebook, all good podcast apps, and you can listen to the show on YouTube. Okay, boys, thank you again, and we'll speak to you next week. Thanks. See ya.
Yes.